So welcome to actually part 2 of our squat project as to grass, A to G. And I was corrected the other day by a yoga teacher, quite rightly. There are other names for this version of the squat, or the caveman squat as well. So what we talked about last time was basically what we're setting out to do. I get asked all the time how I squat the way I do and how can people improve their squat. Being a human movement geek, obviously this is something that fascinates me, and I'm quite excited to be bringing this video to you in our start point towards improving our squatting positions. Now, one of the most important factors when it comes to movement and exercise is to recognize that we are all completely different. That comes down to age, somatotype, or your genetics, your previous injury, anything to do with your sporting daily life, or maybe you're sedentary. All of these will impact on your movement ability and also the way you can improve, or how far you can improve your squatting technique. So we've got to take into account that we shouldn't really compare ourselves to other people. Also, the best question to start with is, why do you squat? Why do you want to squat, or why do you want to improve your squat? Is it because it's uncomfortable? Are you feeling limited? Or is it just because you're comparing yourself to other people? And that's really important when it comes to everything I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to try to give you context which actually is extremely relevant to what you need to do to improve your squat. So here's some questions for you. Does your pelvis function properly? What is good pelvic function, and how would you know? And so how we apply this into what we're going to be looking at today is I'm going to be teaching you how you can test your own pelvis function, and then also how you might be able to correct it. An important differentiator that I need to make clear right from the outset is the difference between technique and intrinsic function. So what we are looking at when we watch each other move or ourselves move in the mirror is extrinsic technique. Question, what is technique anyway? When you squat, you bend your ankles, knees and hips so you can get down and up, is a simple way of describing it. But then when it comes to specific tasks or sports, the technique may get more specific. A key factor to what I'm interested in and what I want to get across to you is your technique might actually be inhibited from your intrinsic function, which is your 3 subsystems I talked about last time, your myofascial, skeletal, and your neural system. And if they've compensated due to lifestyle, previous injury, etc., then they may be limiting your technique performance. So as I've explained previously, I'm getting asked a lot of questions. I just want to read a few out that I'm going to hopefully be addressing in this pelvis section. So Leah asked, how do I get my position better? The example being lower bum and straighter back. There's also a question from Neil. He says, butt wink, yes or no? Or does it depend on the person? And we'll talk about what the butt wink looks like when we get to that one. Kelster asks, what if I can't break parallel? What can we do to help that? And are there benefits to ask to grass over, say, a parallel squat? Really good question. So I'm going to be addressing that one as well. And Debbie also said, how can I help clients who apparently seem unable to get to parallel? Really, really great questions. I've got loads more, but I'm going to address them each at a time as we go through the different areas of the body. So today's focus is pelvic function specifically. So did you get your benchmark? Did you take a side photo of yourself squatting down as far as you can for a start point? If not, you can do that now. Don't worry if you missed the last one. I'd like to say thank you to all of the guys who've sent in their photos already, and you'll have seen around about half a dozen that I posted into my blog just on Tuesday, showing the differences of all of our start points. This is really a key factor that's going to be a theme throughout all of these videos, is just how different we all are. So you might be wondering why we have to start at the pelvis. Well, evidence suggests that 60% of dysfunction stems from the pelvis. It also seems like a good start point considering how changing what happens at the pelvis can influence both ascending and descending biomechanical changes. So we could get changes further down the chain and up the chain just by considering and working on the pelvis. So briefly, just to highlight the fact that we are working with an integrated system, I want you to consider the fact that if you drop your knee in your pelvis will roll in, your spine will roll in, your shoulder will turn. That influences all the way through the chain. Whenever you're moving, running, jogging, etc., you get this chain reaction through the body. So while I'm focusing on the pelvis at the moment, please understand that we can be influencing in either direction, or your pelvis could be influenced from either direction as well. So what I'm going to teach you here is a very quick and easy way to do an evidence-based pelvic function screen on yourselves. So sit comfortably, take the hips to around about 90, feet underneath the hips, and then just cross one ankle over the opposite leg. Yeah. Let the knee drop to where it wants to drop, and that may feel easier for some of you and harder for others. You're going to get an eyeball as to where the knee drops down to. Now the best comparison with this leg is going to be the other leg. So when you switch sides, what you're hoping to get is symmetry. If you haven't, like me, and you've got one side slightly higher than the other, that's a good indicator that you have pelvic dysfunction. So go on, have a go now. Sit on your chair, sit back, legs supported, cross one ankle over, let the knee drop, try and keep the hips relatively level, eyeball where it comes to, and then compare to the other side. If you have an asymmetry, then there's definitely something we can do. So I'm going to teach you an exercise as well. So if you've been following me for a while, you may be familiar with this test and this exercise, but for those who haven't seen it before, I'm going to teach it you now. There's going to be a whole plethora of new ones to follow, don't worry, but this is always going to be a great start point. So what we're going to do is an anti-spasm on those hips. So if they were slightly asymmetrical, hopefully what that will do is encourage the muscles to fully function again. They've just gone to sleep, or they've adapted to the fact you're sitting a lot, and so it's a really cool technique. What's great about it is you can do it sitting at your desk. So what I want you to think about is this movement, but we're going to do it in an isometric muscle contraction. What that means is we're going to stop the movement, place your hands on the inside of the knee, so when you want to produce the movement, the hands are stopping it. Now relax, because what we're going to do is we're going to do that at 20% of your maximum effort, and you're going to hold for 20 seconds. So hands on the inside of the knee, rotate the leg into the hands, hold it there by keeping the hands to keep the knee in place, pressing down, 20%, 20 seconds. Relax the leg down, bring it back up, and rather than pushing the leg down, you're literally just stopping it. I did say pushing down, I didn't mean that. So we're going to do 4 repetitions on each side. So if you're doing it with me, just take a minute to focus on what 20% might feel like. It's probably less than you imagine. So if you imagine as hard as you can, halved and halved again, held for about 20 seconds, and then take the leg down. And this is a great technique. It's been researched twice by 2 different groups and found to be a fantastic technique to put in place maybe of stretching. So if you've tried stretching and it hasn't worked, potentially then your muscles are not tight. They could just be in this kind of subclinical adaptation or subclinical spasm that I'm talking about here. I can't remember how many we've done. Either way, you want to do 4 on this side and you want to do 4 on this side. And as you do that, make sure you're focusing on what 20% feels like. What's great is you can immediately measure, so you just redo the test straight away afterwards, and let me know if your knees dropped down a little bit, if they became more symmetrical, and if they didn't. It may be that you need another technique. Keep watching. So it's really important that we then practice this technique on a regular basis, because it isn't going to fix you in just 1 minute, 20 seconds, 2 minutes 40 when you do both sides. So once you've done it, really what you need to do is get up, move around, have a squat down, try it out. You could benchmark before and after doing the technique with your caveman squat and see how it feels. This is not a quick fix, guys. Their bodies have got into the states they're in over time from our sedentary lifestyle. So it's going to take time to get our function back. For some, it might be quicker, for others, a little bit longer. It's just one of those things we have to have some patience and keep trying. If this isn't the technique for you, if this one doesn't help you, there are loads more. So I'm going to put a little clip in of another technique that you can use. And I'm also going to introduce you to some tools that might be able to help as well. So there's some great tools out there that we can use to assist our anti-spasm exercise, which is the most important thing, by the way. But you may have seen things like foam rollers. So my favourite is the pulse roll, which also vibrates. So what that means is If you have an area that feels uncomfortable to roll on, you can switch the vibration on, and what it does is it allows you to just rest on the foam roller rather than rolling, and it's a lot nicer experience. So I'm not going to switch it on just now because the noise might disturb the recording. But what you do is simply take your bottom over the foam roller and find the tender bit, and you can switch on the vibration if that's going to help, or you can roll or rest where the tender bit is. It's a little bit like manual therapy, but it doesn't replace a manual therapist's hands. So here you find that area. It's kind of the meaty part just at the top of the back of the hip, around this area. If you've got the bony bit here, your greater trochanter, and then your sacrum, it's that middle area there. And then we find a position where it might be slightly tender and just hold it. If you want to make that go a little deeper, then you can cross the leg over if you can get in that position. And I can feel that that's definitely gone deeper. It's kind of pushing the muscle to the surface. And then as I press down, I can let my body weight go down. And you can either roll again or switch the vibration on. So give it a go. Let me know how you get on with that one. Now, if you are more advanced and you've been foam rolling for a while, have you ever tried using a lacrosse ball? So this is a little ball I got from my friends at Wolverhampton Fitness. And same idea, but this time, because the surface is more curved, actually will go deeper. And I've been practicing this one for a while. And so I can find a nice area there. And again, you can just wait, let the pressure. You find a tender bit. So you don't really want, if you imagine a 0 to 10 scale, 0 being no discomfort, 10 being really painful, you want to be around about the 3s, 4s maybe, not too high. And you can roll, ease off, and then you can just switch sides and do the same on the other side. And these will just assist. So they're not necessarily a replacement for the anti-spasm, but anything that can assist and help improve your movement, it's got to be a bonus. Now finally, one of the last things that I'd like to talk about for this particular video is strength training, which is so important. It's okay rolling, it's okay doing the anti-spasms and all these types of techniques, or getting massages, or whatever it is you're doing to improve your movement. The body will always take back, if you go and sit at a desk all day, it's going to go back to that compensatory state. So we've got to repeat those techniques, but also if we can layer on very specific strength training, actually that can reduce them coming back. So if we think of these muscles around the outside of the hip as abductors, they take the leg away from the body. What we want to do initially is work the adductors, which do the opposite movement. And there's a law that is known, or the hypothesis, if you like, in the industry, that's called the law of reciprocal inhibition. And that's where two muscles work together. You have the agonist on the outside, which is this prime mover, or the abductor, and it works with the adductors, hopefully to stabilize your hips. So if your abductors have been dysfunctional or weak or not working properly, and we've applied the antispasm, they may have influenced that law of reciprocal inhibition and stability. So we might start with some strength work on the adductors. Yeah. Now that can be quite simple. It could be literally sitting on one of the machines in the gym, adductor machines, hip adductors, and doing reps and sets. You could use body weight by doing side planks and then lifting up the body using the top leg, which would then effectively be working the adductors again. Or you could tie resistance bands around the knees and pull the knees together. Then we'd want to apply work on the abductors, which is the muscles that have been, we think, dysfunctional. So again, you do the opposite. So you'd sit on the abductor machine, you'd have the band around the knees where you could do your seated clams or side lying clams, and or your body weight side plank would then be using the bottom leg to hit the outside of the hip. Another great technique that I use in squatting is using the band around the knees while squatting for the abduction component. But don't forget those adductors. And I don't know if you knew this, but the hip ratios should be 1-to-1, ab and adductors. And if you're not sure whether yours are, try sitting on an ab and adductor machine, same weight, same reps and sets, and see if it feels the same. So I just want to come to the questions that I've been asked. So for Leah, how do I get my position better? Example, lower bum, straighter back. So Leah, it depends on where your limitation is coming from. And the problem is, for some people, it can be coming from a number of places. So you've now got a pelvis test and exercise that you can go and try out, and I know you're familiar with that one, but don't forget the others. And it is about being persistent, monitoring and measuring where you get success. Where you do get success, do more of that. To address Neil's question about the butt wink, now the butt wink, whether you know this, I'm not sure whether you know or not, is when, as you come down, your bum tips under. And so, yes or no, Neil, is going to depend on the type of squat you're doing. If you're doing a caveman squat, then it doesn't matter. That should happen naturally because the femur will hit the pelvis and tilt the pelvis backwards, giving you the butt wink or the flexion in the lumbar spine. However, if you've got a compressive load down on your spine with a bar across your back, the butt wink's probably not a good thing to do on a regular basis. Once or twice you might get away with it, a few weeks, maybe even a few months, but over time what you're doing is you're loading an unstable joint or an open joint at the back, so it's probably not a great thing to do. So if you can eradicate it by improving your pelvic function and only squat to the point before you tip, that would probably be a smart thing to do if you're going to have a load on your body. So Kelster asked, what if we can't break parallel? What can we do to help that? And are there the benefits to astergrass over parallel? It's a really good question. Do we need to squat astergrass or bum to heels for those? I'm not sure if it's PC to use astergrass, but it's a common terminology that I'm aware of. Do we need to? Maybe not necessarily, but if you want to have good, healthy joint range and nutritious movement, as Katie Bowman, who's a leading biomechanist, will say, then we really want full range of movement through each joint. The question would be, why can't you, rather than do you want to? If you're uncomfortable or stiff or limited in certain movements, then having one single goal like the caveman squat might take you towards generally more healthy, nutritious movement anyway. So I do believe there are benefits to trying to improve that. However, we have to try and contextualize what I'm talking about here for all the people who may be watching or listening. If people have injuries or of a certain age group, certain demographics, then it may be that expecting you to squat below parallel is inappropriate. Also, have you got a load on your back? Do you have specific goals with relation to loads on your back that require you to pass that? That would be another series of questions. So if your technique isn't safe going below parallel, then I would suggest to avoid loading anything that goes below parallel. But I'd want to understand why maybe your ankles, knees and hips don't allow you to go any lower. If your spine breaks with no load, as I've said earlier, it's not a problem at all. The spine should flex when you get down into that bottom position. So I hope that contributes a little bit, Kelsey, towards your question. It's a little bit more detailed because it would depend on the client. And finally, Debbie did ask, again, similar actually, how to help clients who apparently are unable to get to parallel. My question would be why. So as a biomechanics coach, I would want to assess all of their joints to understand where their limitations are coming from. Can I improve their movement, which could then contribute towards helping them squat lower? I'm not sure we should focus only on one thing just for the sake of it, but if we understand how the squat can impact onto other movements generally, climbing stairs, bending down, picking up shopping, moving furniture to do cleaning, going out in the garden to bend down and pick weeds, all of these will require good, healthy movement through the lower limb and the hips. So, we've discussed pelvis. Now, obviously, this is a big subject, and I'm just trying to help a few people in a few videos. So, it's more complex than just a simple 20-minute video. What I want to highlight really is if you have any concerns, any medical conditions, anything going on, if you're uncomfortable through movement, please go and see your local practitioner. Biomechanics coaches like myself will be able to assess every single joint and structure within your body. They are a great signposting practitioner who will guide you on the service you need rather than just what you think you need by where you're feeling discomfort. So check out the Find a Biomechanics Coach register, or the Register of Biomechanics Coaches. It's on the website at www.biomechanicseducation.com. Go to contacts and you'll find a map on there to find your local biomechanics coach. So I'm trying to help you as much as I can, give you some guidance. For those of you out there with healthy bodies, you're just moving a little bit stiffly, or you want to squat a little bit better, this is perfect for you. But I can't highlight that if you do have any concerns, please go and see somebody locally. That's the best way to get any physical advice. So next time we're going to be discussing the spine, or spine biomechanics. We're going to be looking at how you can assess your own spine, improve the way your spine moves through some simple techniques. And we're also going to be discussing the weak core fallacy. Yes, so I'm going to be citing some research just to back up my thoughts, and there are some of them just my thoughts. So until next time, please keep your questions coming. I'm really enjoying this and looking forward to hearing more of your questions. Till next time.